We're back with our Catch Up with Coach series with Coach Burton Uwarow of our men's basketball team. Coach, thanks for taking the time to be with us a little bit today.
Thank you for having me, Johnny.
It's weird to say, the season was just a couple of months ago, and I know that for our men's basketball team came to a little bit of a disappointing end. But let's talk about last season a little bit. I know you guys came in with a lot of expectations and a lot of goals that you had set as a team. And just talk to me a little bit about, as you look back on last year's team, some of the things that really were positive points for you guys as a team throughout last season.
Well, in the program's history, we've only had, if I remember correctly, we've only had 3 winning seasons. And in 2 out of my 3 years here, we've had winning seasons. The one year we had just an incredible amount of injuries and all of that. And so from that perspective, sometimes we get into where if you don't win a region championship or a national championship, that maybe you didn't fulfill everybody's expectations. But I have high expectations, and we didn't meet all of them, but we met most of them. And I was glad to be. It's the 3rd straight year in the region championship game, and we did it with a majority of freshman playing time. And coming off of our previous year where we had so many injuries and at times we're down to 7 players, it was really nice to have a group where I could play 10 to 12 players every game. And you saw a little bit more of the way that I like to coach this year. We started pressing a little bit more, giving everybody a chance to play. And, I've recruited guys who can do that coming into this next year. And so I plan on continuing to do that coaching, instilling my coaching philosophy with pressing and stuff like that, and giving everybody a chance to play and going deep into our bench. I thought it was a more exciting style. We had a good amount of dunks and stuff during the year. That's a little bit more fun to watch, and we had some pretty good crowds.
It was a great season overall. Let's talk a little bit about that region championship, because I know coming into it, a lot of the people that I talked to, both here and elsewhere, were like, Bob Jones is definitely the favorite. And I remember specifically a couple of times asking you questions about while we were in the region tournament, and you saying that really last year the D2 South was up for grabs for anybody, that there were a lot of good teams in it. And ultimately Johnson was able to get the region championship. But going into that game, what was kind of the mindset you were given to the guys, and ultimately what do you think went wrong for us, I guess I should say, in the region championship?
Well, they had the best season in Johnson's history. Mm-hmm. And so when they have the best season in their history, it's not totally what we did wrong. A lot, I want to give them credit too. It's a lot of what they did right. And they had a lot of veterans on their team. They played mostly veterans, and then they had Freddie was the freshman of the year, and he's an incredibly athletic scorer. I forget where he had been signed initially out of high school, but he signed with either a D1 or D2 school out of high school, and was highly recruited there in Florida. So, they were a really good team. We only beat them by a basket at their place earlier in the year, and they had a catastrophic injury during that game. And so we were really fortunate to even beat them the one time that we did. But ever since we played them 8 or 9 times, the region championship was the first time we'd ever lost to them, but all of our games have been single digits. They just always play us close. They're always athletic, and Coach Landis did a good job with them this year. There's some things that I maybe won't share, but there were things that had been concerning me that you and I had talked about at halftimes or in post-game things, and some things that I could see coming if they weren't changed. And you can lay them in front of the guys, you can let them know that, you can work on it in practice, but there was just some really bad decisions by some of our veteran players. There were a lot of turnovers, and I consider veterans everybody who played a lot of minutes. I'm not talking, necessarily about seniors. I'm talking about people who played a lot the entire year. And, I could have, looking back, there's things that I could have done differently that you don't realize during a game. But, we just had a really bad game at a really bad point of the year. And we were peaking. We were doing what you wanted to do, and we were peaking going into the end of the season there. And we just picked a bad day to have a bad game.
Yeah. Ultimately, even after the region championship, of course, coronavirus and that all exploded. And so the national tournament ended up even being canceled. But after that game, take me into the locker room a little bit. What did you use as a coach to kind of use it as essentially day one of this upcoming season to use as a motivation for our guys that are returning?
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of frustration, but because of what we had been talking about behind the scenes and the warning signs that we as coaches had seen, there really wasn't a whole lot to say to really address that game. Everybody knew what was wrong. It wasn't a big mystery. We just had a lot of stupid turnovers, a lot of really bad decisions. And, I subbed out whenever those were made, and you try to bring somebody in. And if somebody else is making those same mistakes, then, during a game, you're kind of out of options as a coach. But the freshmen, we had a really good freshman class this past year, and, they were really intent on making sure that something like that didn't happen again. There's some things as freshmen that they were looking for and just hoping that a senior would take care of, and they didn't feel like it was their place, and that's natural. But that's how life works. They see some things that they wish had have happened, and they're trying to learn from some other people's mistakes. And so they went home pretty determined that that they're going to have the best year possible next year. I think I'm correct in saying this, but next year's team is going to be the youngest team Bob Jones has ever had. It's really going to be just freshmen and sophomores.
Yeah, it's one of the questions I was going to ask is you have such a young, raw group of individuals, and you already mentioned it, the great freshman class that we had last year, really several guys who made an immediate impact to us. So how do you feel like going into the off season now, or in the off season, with our freshmen, and then with our freshmen coming in alongside those sophomores and younger players that we have? How do you, just a general outlook on the upcoming season, how do you feel about it?
Well, it's, with this off season with the virus, and really after the season we were technically allowed to be with them for a little bit there. We were going to give them a lot, show them what we wanted them to do in the off season and all of that, and really help them get to that. And, we find out on a Thursday that school is ending on that Friday as far as being there. And so we really didn't have the opportunity to do some of the stuff before the guys went home. But the returning freshmen and the guys we've signed, we still meet together every week on Zoom, and we're doing everything we can to grow as a team right now. But a couple of those guys committed without ever visiting campus. And, I think, a lot of my guys reached out to them. I, of course, did a lot of communication, and I think that speaks to a good culture and a good program. That's what I'm interpreting as, where they felt at home enough where they were willing to commit during this period of time without ever visiting. And a couple of them have been able to visit since campus opened back up. But without them visiting, without them playing with our guys, I don't have a strong sense of how we're all going to fit together. And with the changes in our school schedule, it's gonna probably change our basketball schedule somewhat. But all of us at every level are still working out how we're gonna do our schedule. But I think we're scheduled to play anywhere from 4 to 6 Division I games, and I know who's going to comment on social media about us saying that it's the toughest schedule we have, but it is. I don't know how else to say it. Nobody had played as many no Bob Jones team had played as many Division I games in 1 year as we did this year, and we're looking to play even more next year. And so that's going to be really tough on a group of freshmen and sophomores. But again, there's always the hope that it makes our learning curve happen a lot faster, and it helps us prepare for our region schedule.
Coach, as we wrap up here, I know one thing that you have always been about ever since you've been here at Bob Jones is just being very intentional with your players. With this whole coronavirus thing, I know a lot of that has changed how you communicate and how you're able to impact your players since you can't be with them physically. Just talk about how you've had to do that both in the off season and your coaches and captains and others who had to, be in this new normal that we've had to be in the last couple of months, and how you're still able to connect with your players and be a mentor and build a relationship with them.
Yeah, we've done a weekly Zoom meeting as a team with the coaches and everything, and then I asked them to do one amongst themselves. And so for the one that the coaches are involved in, I've had guest speakers. I've had some former Bruin basketball players come and speak, and some professional athletes, and different people from different walks of life. And normally we wouldn't be doing any of these things during the summer. And I actually look at it as a positive. We're communicating way more as a team than we normally would. And, we do it on Tuesday nights, and we started last night with Devin, and each week somebody is in charge of the meeting, and I'm not giving them any restrictions. They're just in charge of bringing something that's going to help the team, and, kind of building that player-led team where they're telling us what they want and what they think it means to have a tough, connected team. So Devin did a good job last night, and we're going to continue on as the summer progresses.
It's Coach Burton Uwarow of our men's basketball team in our Catch Up with Coach series. Coach, again, we appreciate the time today.
Thank you very much.